There's an important issue about the future of New Zealand that we need to talk about. It's our fertility rate. In other words, how many babies are families having? And the short answer is less and less by the year. Our fertility rate is defined by StatsNZ as the actual level of reproduction of a population based on the number of live births that occur. Fertility is normally measured in terms of women of childbearing age, defined as 15 to 44 years, although births to women outside this age range can and do occur. I know this is stating the obvious, but if we don't have babies, our population decreases, our country starts to diminish. And I'll outline why that's a problem shortly. Now, to maintain the population of a country, you need to have a birth rate of at least 2.1. 2.1 is the average number of children each woman needs to have for a population to replace itself in the long term. Crudely speaking, it's one for dad, one for mum, and the 0.1 that allows for, amongst other things, mortality of a woman either before fertility or prior to the end of a woman's fertile life. New Zealand's fertility rate has reached an all-time low, with an average of 1.6 births per woman in the year ending March 2021. This is well below the population replacement level of 2.1 required. It's a decrease of around 20% just in the last decade. And you can see how dramatic the drop is on this graph. From a high of 4.24 in 1960 during the aptly named boomer period, and then hovering around the replacement rate for 4 decades, and now the continuing decline. Statistics New Zealand thought there might have been an increase in births as a result of the COVID-19 lockdown during the first half of 2020, but that doesn't seem to have eventuated. Now, this declining fertility rate should be sounding alarm bells. And it's not just an issue for New Zealand. According to a report by Dutch researchers last year, the 1950s fertility rate being below replacement, below 2.1, was virtually non-existent around the world. Whereas for the period 2010 to 2015, the fertility rate was below 2.1 children in approximately 40% of all countries, almost half. Researchers at the University of Washington published a report in The Lancet last year which predicts that the worldwide fertility rate will fall below 1.7 by 2100. 183 out of 195 countries are predicted to have a fertility rate below the replacement level. That means they reckon that the number of under 5s will fall from 681 million in 2017 to 401 million in 2100. But the number of over 80-year-olds will soar from 141 million in 2017 to 866 million in 2100. In other words, demographers and statisticians predict the family will continue to shrink. And as more women remain childless, the rest will have to increase their fertility to maintain replacement level. But this is unlikely. So why is the rate dropping? Well, there's a number of reasons. Maternal education is strongly related to delayed childbearing and lower fertility. Some researchers say that as females have increased their workforce participation, which may be seen as a good thing, more have chosen to have fewer or no children. Delaying childbirth is reducing the window available for having children. While delayed childbirth presents advantages, it also presents risks, difficulty in conception or involuntary infertility. Economic pressures like student debt, insecure employment, and trying to get on the property ladder also play a role. Falling marriage rates correlate with falling fertility. You're less likely to want to have children with someone when there's no formal commitment. And now couples face additional pressure from environmentalists. They're being told to limit or reject childbearing as the best way to reduce the carbon footprint. Research from a Swedish university found that by choosing to have one less child, a parent would reduce their CO2 emissions by 58.6 tonnes a year during their lifetime, whatever that means. The researchers said that getting rid of the car, avoiding long-haul flights and going vegetarian are all well and good, but these actions save very small amounts of CO2 in comparison with having less children. People like Sir David Attenborough and ethnologist Jane Goodall promote messages like, having fewer or no children brings other benefits. Smaller families can free people to devote more money and time to the children they have, or other aspects of their lives, such as friendships, careers, and activities that give them pleasure. Those who choose to be child-free will have very much more freedom, including for some to do other things to help protect the planet or help others. Children in small families can benefit from having more attention from their parents and greater freedom without siblings. By the way, their organisation Population Matters is strongly supportive of abortion as a form of population control. Yet, the American think tank Act On Institute said that the falling birth rate could do more harm rather than help the environmental crisis. They say a childless lifestyle causes a short-term economic boom as couples spend their money on consumer goods. In other words, not on having and raising their children, they spend their money on things that they want instead. This increased consumption will largely offset the reduced carbon footprint of not having children. The model assumes that childless adults retain the same work and consumption patterns as they would with children. Well, they don't, do they? In other words, it's not quite as simple as the environmentalists make out. Weren't we told to go forth and multiply? Did God forget about the carbon footprint thingy? Is having a brother or sister or two now to be frowned upon? When a married couple announce their third child, should we be reporting them to the population control police or environmental groups? It sounds dopey, doesn't it? In fact, when Prince Harry and Meghan said that they would only have 2 maximum kids as a sign of their commitment to environmentalism, pro-lifer Lila Rose from Live Action, who shared a message via video at our March for Life last December, said, "Kids are never the problem. We don't solve concerns of war, the economy or climate by rejecting the gift of kids. We solve our problems by taking ownership for whatever our part is in them and by using the creativity, gifts and talents we have to serve others and make the world better." Yep, each child brings a unique set of skills and abilities, what economists call human capital, that contribute to the productivity, innovation and well-being of the entire nation. We need a younger population. We need strong, vibrant families of all sizes. Why? Well, firstly, to provide a workforce for economic growth. As we've learned from our COVID recovery plan, to have economic growth, you need a workforce to do that work and build an economy. Secondly, an ageing population means increasing healthcare, increasing aged care and other fiscal costs such as the government pension. Taxes pay for this. Welfare payments support our elderly, but not if we don't have the younger population to support this responsibility. We need taxpayers, we need workers. In other words, someone has to look after old people like me and possibly you as we get older and retire. As a parent often says to their children, "We looked after you as children and paid all your bills. When we get old and needy, we'll be coming to your place." Increasingly though, the elderly and even the not so elderly are living alone with fewer family supports. Do you know that the fastest growing household type in New Zealand is single person household? And thirdly, with a declining fertility rate comes a reliance on migration. People from other countries coming in to provide for an ageing population. But all countries around the world are going to be competing for that migration because most countries are facing the same dilemma. Now, researcher Lindsay Mitchell was the author of our report, Families, Ever Fewer or No Children, How Worried Should We Be?, written in 2019, and she sounded this warning. Without population replacement or growth, economies decline. A nation's strength lies in its young, their energy, innovation, risk-taking and entrepreneurship. The new blood drives the exchange of ideas and experimentation. If these attributes aren't homegrown, they have to be imported. So what's the solution? Well, some of the solutions mentioned have been financial incentives, enhanced maternity and paternity leave, free childcare, employment rights, or simply migration through throwing open the borders. Interestingly, I've just finished reading a report on the Makata.net blog site about Hungary. Now in 1963, when the worldwide fertility rate was fairly decent, Hungary had the world's lowest fertility rate at 1.81. In fact, it hit an all-time low of 1.29 in 1999. But since then it's risen to 1.41 in 2015 and now stands at 1.53 for 2020. It's almost up to New Zealand's rate. And 2 years ago they introduced the Family Protection Action Plan to incentivise families to have more children. It included lifetime income tax exemption for women with 4 or more children, 3-year paid maternity leave, a $35,000 interest-free loan for women under 40 getting married for the first time, and if the family eventually has 3 children or more, the loan is forgiven. Generous home mortgage subsidy for families with 2 or more children. Now that would go down well in New Zealand, getting young families into home ownership. Families with 3 or more children are eligible for a government grant of $9,000 towards the purchase of a 7-seat car. And beginning in 2022, no income tax for those under 25. They can start saving as soon as they start earning. The incentives take effect when expectant mothers reach the 2nd trimester of pregnancy. According to the Hungarian Minister of State for Family and Youth Affairs, Katalin Novak, this is a philosophical aspect for us. We believe life begins at conception. We value unborn children, not only born children. Wow, how refreshing, how biological. According to Ms. Novak, what we do in Hungary is decreasing or eliminating the disadvantages of those who are having children. All over the developed world, those who are having children are in a less beneficial situation than those who aren't. We want to eliminate these disadvantages. Well, I'm not saying that we all need 7-seater people movers, but we should be at least having this discussion about fertility rates and population, just as Hungary has. We need to ask whether Kiwi families are delaying, having less, or not having children at all, and what factors this is based on, and whether their decision is based on the most accurate and best information available. The future of our country depends on our fertility rate, because the bottom line is children are a blessing and they are a gift. Go forth and multiply. Families matter.